This is the biggest scandal that YouTube has ever had. Right here, we have a post from Representative Jim Jordan, who's a member of the House of Representatives on the House Judiciary Committee. Now, what he's saying in this post is that YouTube banned creators and took other enforcement action at the behest of the Biden administration to limit people's speech in direct violation of the First Amendment, and that YouTube admits to it and is now trying to undo the harm that it caused. So let's see exactly what Representative Jim Jordan says here. It starts off saying, "Breaking. Due to our oversight efforts, Google commits to offer all creators previously kicked off YouTube due to political speech violations to return to the platform." That's right, they're going to bring back anybody who was banned at the behest of the Biden administration or just for political reasons in the past. Now, I don't know if that's going to include people like Alex Jones, but I think it might. The important thing here is that's not all of it. So if we scroll down to see the rest of what he's saying, YouTube also admits the Biden administration's censorship pressure was unacceptable and wrong. That's YouTube pointing out that they knew what the Biden administration was asking them to do was unacceptable, that they were violating the First Amendment and that they knew that it was wrong, but they did it anyway because they confirmed that the Biden administration wanted Americans censored for free speech that did not violate YouTube's policies. The things that Biden officials were asking YouTube to ban people's accounts for were not things that violated YouTube's policies, and YouTube admits to doing it anyway, which is a massive violation of the First Amendment, especially when you consider that it's not just a private entity acting, it's not just YouTube doing this, they're doing it at the behest of the government, which makes it a direct violation of the First Amendment. They gave details when YouTube began rolling back its censorship policies on political speech after the Judiciary Committee began its investigation. States that public debate should never come at the expense of relying on authorities. They promised to never use third-party fact-checkers and warned that Europe's censorship laws target American companies and threaten American speech. Now, there's a lot to go on there. Basically, they told the Judiciary Committee that they've started to roll back the policies and they gave them a timeline for it. They also reiterated that what they did was wrong and that they were censoring public debates because they were relying on authoritative voices, for instance, the Biden administration, to censor people based on their political leanings, which is a massive scandal. I cannot overstate how bad that is. They've now also promised that they will never use third-party fact-checkers, which is good because third-party fact-checkers are always biased to the left. The entire fact-checking industry is a left-wing grift. This part here is actually very interesting. They're warning that Europe's censorship laws are targeting American companies and threaten American speech. Now, what that's in reference to is something called the Digital Services Act, where Europe is trying to pass this through the EU, which will require companies operating in Europe to censor things worldwide, which obviously isn't legal. So YouTube is pointing that out to Congress and hoping that Congress will deal with it before YouTube has to deal with it on their own. Jim Jordan then goes on to say, over the past few years, we've uncovered massive scandals relating to big tech censorship. And then he posts this link here to his posts about the Facebook files, which is a whole different rabbit hole to go down. But basically, it was back when, right after the Twitter files, where it was proved that the Biden administration was asking Twitter to censor Americans in violation of the First Amendment, Facebook also put out files that showed they were doing the exact same thing to Facebook. It's absolutely insane how much censorship the Biden administration was doing. So then we scroll down here and we see, during the Biden-Harris years, under White House pressure, YouTube changed its policies to censor political debate on COVID and elections. Today, YouTube admits that the censorship pressure from the Biden administration was unacceptable and wrong. So this is specifically what they had censored people for, talking about COVID and talking about elections. Obviously, if you were going against the mainstream narrative on either of those topics, they would ban you, but not because you violated YouTube's policies, because the White House forced YouTube to change their policies in order to ban people for it. So then we continue down here, we see, now to make amends to the American people and because of our work, YouTube is rolling back its censorship policies on political speech, including topics such as COVID and elections. So YouTube is going to get rid of the policies against COVID misinformation and election misinformation, which is good because the people who decide what misinformation is, well, they always seem to be on one side of the aisle. You can't have somebody be the arbiter of truth because every single individual is biased to their own politics. So there's no way to tell what's misinformation and what's not, because a lot of the times things are in the gray zone. Things aren't black and white. And by pushing water for one side of the political aisle, YouTube completely undermined the political speech protections of the First Amendment in America. Honestly, people should go to jail for it, but it's a good start for them to start rolling this back. Now, what does this all mean? Whether you were an established YouTube presence with a massive following like Dan Bongino, or we're just starting out to express political views there, you will have an opportunity to come back onto the platform if you were censored for engaging in political speech. That's right, they're going to start bringing people back, which is great. We love to see that. Jim Jordan then goes on to talk more about when Mark Zuckerberg wrote a letter to the committee saying that Biden pressured Facebook to censor Americans, that Facebook censored Americans because of that, and the admission that Facebook throttled the Hunter Biden laptop story, which was a story that probably would have cost Biden the 2020 election if literally every journalist in America didn't come together to censor it to try to make people think it wasn't real when in fact it was, which is another massive violation of the First Amendment. There's a theme here. Anyway, down here, we have Jim Jordan continuing to say, even as Meta was admitting that the Biden-Harris censorship was wrong, others in big tech were reluctant to go on record. Now, Google Google is acknowledging for the first time that it too faced censorship pressure from the Biden White House, and that pressure was unacceptable and wrong. So he's just reiterating here, and he's pointing out that this took them way too long to come forward about. But that's not all. YouTube is making changes to its platform to prevent future censorship. YouTube is committing to the American people that it will never use outside so-called fact checkers to censor speech, which is important because, as he points out, this will not let them tell Americans what to believe and not believe anymore. They're also going to start trying out a community notes system instead of any kind of fact checker, which is just like what Elon Musk has on Twitter. And then they go back into more detail about how Europe is trying to censor YouTube and other platforms online, which obviously we can't let them do. YouTube warns that Europe could force companies to remove lawful social media content and could risk freedom of expression within and outside the EU. And now obviously we're not going to let that happen, especially not with Trump in power. If Biden was in power, we might let it happen, but I don't see Trump letting the Europeans do this. And let's be honest, we all know that the Europeans cannot do anything to America that we don't let them do, because if it wasn't for us, they'd be speaking Russian or German right now. So basically, Jim Jordan sums all of this up by saying all of the above are massive wins for the American people, the First Amendment, and freedom. We won't stop fighting to protect free speech. And he's right, these are massive wins for America, although I do think that people need to go to jail for this. Biden administration officials should be in jail if they use the government to censor online media, especially YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, any of that. People should go to jail. I don't understand why nobody has. It makes no sense. They clearly violated the First Amendment. But let's take a look at what some online personalities have to say about this. Tectone actually points out that his channel took a massive hit the moment he started talking about COVID. He said it took months to recapture the momentum that he had before that, and he is shocked that they admitted this publicly, and maybe he's not paranoid, maybe he's just aware of what was going on. Now, this is a sentiment that has been echoed by a lot of other creators, that when they started talking about COVID or other things political, that their channels got completely throttled, especially with Tim Pool here, who recently started a new channel, The Tim Pool Show, because he believed that his other channels were being throttled by YouTube because of their political content. Elon Musk came out to say well done and congratulate everybody on winning this victory and bringing into the light the treachery of the Biden administration. And then here the Nelk boys actually pointed out that YouTube just reinstated their first podcast interview with President Donald Trump that they removed themselves in 2022. This is after Google admitting today that they censored YouTube creators at Biden's request. Times are finally changing, and then they want them to unban Steve will do it. I cannot overstate how huge it is to have this interview come back up, because this interview being pulled down was obviously in relation to what happened on Twitter, where the old Twitter owners banned Donald Trump on here, and they were basically trying to deplatform Donald Trump on every social media. So to see him come back up on YouTube, to see the interview be reinstated, it's a major win. That being said, Tim Pool has actually requested YouTube reinstate his podcast episode with Alex Jones as a result of this, because obviously the Alex Jones episode was taken off for COVID and other political reasons, though I don't think it has been reinstated yet. I'm sure we will see that, because when Congress gets involved, the CEOs panic. So I think this entire thing is great. I 100% congratulate the House Judiciary Oversight Committee and thank them for actually putting some effort in to protect the First Amendment. It's insane to me that YouTube as a platform decided to go forward and not say anything. Biden was pressuring them to censor all these people, but they could have put out a statement and they could have stopped it in its tracks. Because if YouTube went out publicly, they held a press conference and said, hey, Biden's trying to get us to censor people, it would have had to stop. They could have sued too. They could have brought it up to the Supreme Court, who would have stopped it. So it's insane to me that they let it go on, and I'm glad that they're finally coming clean. I do think that some people should be in jail for this though. What do you guys think? Do you think people need to go to jail for censoring Americans and violating your First Amendment? What do you think about this entire situation? Because I think it's crazy that this happened in the first place, and I'm actually pretty interested to see, did you guys know that this was happening? Or did you think, oh no, there's no way they would do that? Let me know in the comments, because I'm actually interested to hear what you guys have to say. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day, and God bless you.